fresh pair of eyes, I think, is going to help him a lot. So we are actually about to see these teams revealed on screen.
Angel is running a team of Garchomp, Celesteela. We have Alolan Muck, Arcanine, Tapu Koko, and Gastrodon. Gastrodon making its first appearance on stream. We also have Wolfe running a team of Porygon 2, Tapu Lele, Alolan Muck, Arcanine, Tapu Fini, and Garchomp as well. So they're sharing the Arcanine and the Garchomp.
And the Muck.
And the Muck. So, I mean, those are very strong Pokemon in this current format, though. The Muck, Arcanine, and Garchomp core really work well together.
No, what I like here as well is I think interesting kind of pairings between the two. The one thing that definitely looks not out of place, but having a tough time to come to the field is going to be Tapu Fini. Tapu Koko is a good answer from Angel, and the Gastrodon are going to make it a bit of a rough old time to get that Tapu Fini, so that may influence Wolfe heavily in team preview. If he brings it, he's going to have to be confident in the rest of his team to support it, and let it do the kind of work we've seen it doing in recent weeks. Definitely been doing a lot of work for some people, other people not so much. I'll be curious to see what he can get out of it, if anything at all, in this matchup.
As the players get ready to start, we have an Arcanine and Alolan Muck lead from Angel, and a Tapu Lele and Arcanine lead from Wolfe. Interesting.
We're going to see the Intimidates go down, not before this Psychic Surge from Tapu Lele, though. We're going to get an insight into maybe who is the quicker Arcanine. Angel's dropping the Intimidate first, but of course Wolfe's retaliating with an Intimidate of its own.
So Muck definitely taking a little bit of a hit here. Muck loves to get off the physical attacks, but being intimidated, he's not going to be able to put as much pressure onto things like Tapu Lele, who can really, you know, they get checked by Alolan Muck, but ultimately, Tapu Lele's typing just doesn't pair up well against that Muck.
No, Muck, of course, usually using knockoff. We have seen some Tapu Lele holding the Psychinium Z to get that big Shattered Psyche off. That would be great if it can. It also reduces the damage from the ever-popular on Muck knockoff, so that interaction could be really good information as we move into the back end of these games. We aren't going to see that, though, with Tapu Lele immediately leaving the field.
In comes Garchomp to replace Tapu Lele as Angel's Arcanine goes for a Snarl. It's going to reduce the special attack of both Garchomp and Arcanine as Arcanine goes for a Will-O-Wisp onto Angel's Alolan Muck. The Muck, of course, returning with a knockoff, something that it is very well known for, as it takes a little bit of rough skin damage from the Garchomp in return.
We also see it doesn't successfully knock off an item, so a great indication to Angel there that Muck didn't knock anything off, so it's probably the Groundium Z. Very good knowledge as he goes forward, even if this game doesn't work out, even if he doesn't actually show it, it's going to be good. But I think Wolfe very smartly identifying the problem being the Muck. He catches it with not only an Intimidate, catches it with a nice burn as well from his own Arcanine, and on top of that, he doesn't give it an option to deal damage by nullifying the bonus that knockoff can give. Obviously, Angel going for the Snarl, trying to limit the damage of that Tapu Fini. Doesn't get any benefit from it, though, with now 2 physical attackers on the field for Wolfe.
Gastrodon coming in to take Arcanine's spot as Garchomp goes for a Rock Slide. Not going to do a whole lot to that Gastrodon, but a decent amount to the Muck. Arcanine going for another Will-O-Wisp, but unfortunately Muck is already burned as Muck goes for a knockoff onto the Arcanine, getting rid of the Aguavberry.
No, Angel not really using knockoff for damage at the moment, just using it as an information gathering exercise. Interesting that Wolfe decides to go for the Willows there. Maybe banking on Angel removing the Muck, believing it to be kind of out of service now, but that works well. He keeps it in and gets some valuable information. Knowing that that Arcanine can be taken out without that berry activating is going to help him maybe figure out a way, especially with something like this Gastrodon on the field. Unfortunately, the big threat of Garchomp with the Tectonic Rage may be getting in Angel's head a little bit. He has to be worried. It doesn't look like he's going to spend it on the Muck in particular, but he may spend it to do really big damage to something that takes a neutral hit from it, like this Gastrodon. So I think Wolfe could be in a really good position. I think the threat of Tectonic Rage just making Angel play a little bit differently to how he perhaps would like to.
We are going to see Wolfe withdraw the Garchomp and bring in Tapu Fini. So we now know all of Wolfe's team. and Tapu Fini going to go ahead and set up that Misty Surge. Muck also getting switched out in favor of Arcanine. Arcanine versus Arcanine. Arcanine, of course, going to get Intimidate off onto that Tapu Fini, and possibly more importantly onto the Arcanine. But Arcanine on Wolfe's side of the field reveals the Snarl, and it's going to lower the special attack of Arcanine and Gastrodon. As Gastrodon, it looks like, goes for its Z move.
Yeah, it's going to be a really big Z move coming out from this Gastrodon. We don't see the one that a lot of people went for. It's going to be Z Stockpile, so no fancy animation here. It's going to boost its defense and special defense, and also, if it wasn't at full health already, would bring it back up, so not getting the full value there out of the Gastrodon Z Stockpile. I think what Angel was looking for there was to take a really big hit from the Garchomp, potentially that Tectonic Rage, and then recover it with Z Stockpile. He still gets the bonus in defenses, and that's going to help, but Wolfe, with just the threat of Tectonic Range, I think making Angel play differently, and that's just working for him right now.
And Wolfe's actually withdrawn his Arcanine and brought out Garchomp, as it and Tapu Fini both take a Snarl. Tapu Fini going for what looks like a Swagger, but unfortunately no confusion due to the misty terrain that is on the field. Gastrodon going for another Stockpile as his defenses raise yet again, and Tapu Fini reveals the leftovers, it looks like.
This is something we've seen from Wolfe before. This is something we actually saw on his Florida team back in 2016. The option to swagger with your own safeguard as such set up. Now in this instance, Tapu Fini works great for him because he's able to bring Misty Terrain and then set up swagger without the threat of confusing his own Pokemon. Now this Garchomp is boosted in its attack by 2 stages. Whatever it hits with that Tectonic Rage is going to be taking a monstrous amount of damage. And even if he goes for something without the Z move, it's still going to be so much damage. So it just becomes such a big threat, and Angel's been having to play around this Garchomp all day, I think.
Arcanine getting switched out for the Celesteela, possibly embracing the Earthquake that was coming his way, or maybe a Z move. But Garchomp instead goes for a Rock Slide, misses the Celesteela, and does a little bit of damage to the Gastrodon as Tapu Fini once again swaggers the Garchomp. So that Garchomp is becoming super powered as Gastrodon goes for a recover and gains back all the HP, which wasn't all that much to begin with from the Rock Slide damage that it just took.
No, I think another instance where Angel's trying to prepare for bigger damage onto his Gastrodon, and just the threat of that Garchomp is making him play as a sort of response to something that's not yet happening from Wolfe. Of course, catching that Celesteela with Rock Slide would have been fantastic. That's a really good avoid for Angel to open up another window, but now with +4 stages of attack, this Garchomp is beyond a threat. I cannot even begin to say how dangerous this Pokemon is.
Beyond dangerous, in fact. Trying to get a little bit of that attack down, we are going to see Arcanine come in for the Celesteela. It's going to take a little bit of damage from that Crunch, it looks like. Not enough to do less than half, honestly.
Yeah, the Fire Fang there into the, obviously, Fire-type Arcanine working pretty well.
The Gastrodon going for a Scald onto the Garchomp, but not before it was once again swaggered. Possibly Wolfe predicting the Arcanine switch in, but maybe playing a little safe in case Celesteela did in fact switch out.
I think what's great here as well is that Tapu Fini is doing more than setting up these swaggers for the Garchomp. That Misty Terrain means there's no threat of the Scald Burn. That is one way that would have been really good for Angel to get back in this game, but with Misty Terrain, obviously it can't get burned. Unfortunately, even at +6 stages of attack now, Garchomp just isn't doing the damage. I think he quickly needs to go on the offensive. He also has to bear in mind that Gastrodon has boosted its defenses with the 2 stockpiles, but those are going to waste as he switches it out.
Celesteela coming in for the Gastrodon as Garchomp goes for a Rock Slide, and a very strong Rock Slide indeed, enough to do half damage to that Celesteela and knock out the Arcanine on Angel's side of the field. We are going to see Tapu Fini go for a Heal Pulse and restore that Garchomp to its initial glory at full health now.
No, pretty good play there from Wolfe. I think this team very clearly showing its strategy early doors. Set up for the Garchomp, put all your eggs in the Garchomp basket, and see if you can ride that all the way home. It looks to be doing a fantastic job. Of course, at +6, it's the fastest thing on the field still, and it kind of has its pick of the litter on what it wants to do. It can Rock Slide for big damage on Celesteela. It's probably got an option to do something ridiculous, such as a Tectonic Rage at +6, and we just see Angel get the information he wants, locking in that forfeit. So Probably not what he was expecting to see from Wolfe in this game. Definitely something we haven't seen before, especially on stream. A different way to play, but very, very Wolfe style.
Yeah, and effective. Let's not forget how effective that was. Did half damage to the Celesteela. I mean, there wasn't really much that Angel could do at that point. So go ahead and give the forfeit. Avoid giving away any more information about your team. That's the best thing you can do.
It definitely isn't. I think maybe Angel not prepared as much. The way Tapu Fini's been getting played recently always catches people off guard when you pull something new out. So week 1, we have Leftovers Carmine Substitute. Week 2, we have Specs hit Muddy Water every single turn. And now we're into week, I guess, 3 or Tournament 3. And we're now looking at Heal Pulse, Swagger, keep your Garchomp super safe and do lots of good things to it. So definitely an interesting kind of setup and a new option for Tapu Fini, but it plays to Wolfe's style. We've seen it throughout the years. Even his world's winning team contains Swords Dance to boost his Rayquaza's attack. He's just doing it in a slightly different way, and that seems to be the style he knows. Seems to be the style that wins him things too.
Absolutely. This newfound form of safe swagger, as it were, not using Safeguard, but instead utilizing that Misty Terrain to keep anything that, honestly, he wants to boost with Swagger. Could be the Muck even. If he decides to bring Muck, he could boost Muck by 2 stages, and good lord, that would do an incredible amount of damage to a lot of things on Angel's team, honestly, as it does to most things in this format.
I think Angel may be forced to bring the Tapu Koko just to keep it in the back and try and get rid of Misty Terrain. That could be something that's important, but I think there's more tricks in the locker for Wolfe's team here. We did see one. We didn't see anything out of something like the Porygon, though. That's going to be really, really important. And we just didn't see too much information outside of perhaps the Groundium on the Garchomp with the failed knockoff and the Berry. So maybe a little more time, he would have got a little more information.
And we are going to see a somewhat similar setup. We have Wolfe running Arcanine and Tapu Lele to hit the field first, and Angel with its own Arcanine and Garchomp as well. Arcanine on Angel's side getting the Intimidate off first, followed by Wolfe's, and of course that Psychic Terrain is set up due to Psychic Surge on Tapu Lele.
Yeah, we see, of course, Wolfe again, I think getting the better Intimidate there. He manages to get an Intimidate down on Garchomp, which is really important. What this Tapu Lele gets up to is going to be really essential too. There's not the same threat that the Muck brought to it in game 1, so Tapu Lele may stay in and show off some of its tricks. That's going to be really important. Of course, Arcanine, even if it wanted to, could not Extreme Speed right now. That's something that we've seen pick up on Arcanine a little more recently, but we are going to see some switching to start this game off.
We're going to see Garchomp come in for Arcanine as Angel's Garchomp goes for a Protect. And not going to take any damage. Arcanine going for a Snarl, possibly trying to lower the attack, special attack of that Tapu Lele, because it is a serious threat, getting a little bit of damage off on the Garchomp as well, although the special attack drop doesn't really matter.
No, we're going to see something a little bit helpful there. The special attack drop on the Tapu Lele is going to give that Garchomp on Angel's side of the field a little more survivability, I think. That's something that's going to be very important. The Assault Vest Garchomp that popped up not so popular now, so you kind of have to help weather the storm a few other ways, and hitting that Snarl on Tapu Lele, definitely one of the ways about it. The Garchomp switching, though, with the threat of the Groundium against that Arcanine, it could be really big for Wolfe.
And we're going to see the terrain get changed due to Tapu Koko's Electric Surge coming in for Angel's Garchomp. And we're also going to see a double switch, actually. Arcanine getting called back in place of Celesteela as well on Angel's side of the field. Tapu Lele goes for a Moonblast onto the Tapu Koko that just came in, taking about half damage, but also getting a potentially critical special attack drop. But wait, we're not done. We're going to see a Z move come from Wolfe's Garchomp.
It's going to be really important that he didn't target down the old Arcanine slot, because he does go in and target the Celesteela. So a fantastic switch from Angel. He knows about the Groundium from the Game 1 knockoff. He knows that's a really common way to be knocking out the Arcanine. And of course the Celesteela switching with that flying type, not getting hurt. So a wasted Z move from Wolfe means that kind of pressure that he had with the threat of Groundium Z not going to be there for the rest of this game. And that maybe gives Angel a way back in.
Tapu Koko getting withdrawn for Arcanine to come back in, firing off another Intimidate. No safe swaggers this time around as Tapu Lele is on the field, but not for long, actually, as Arcanine on Wolfe's side comes in as well. to get its own Intimidate off onto Angel's newly found Arcanine and Celesteela.
No, really nice there. I think Wolfe, again, getting a little more benefit out of this Intimidate, but it's a revolving door of Pokemon as we see the Garchomp switch out for the Tapu Fini and get the Misty Terrain back up. Of course, the switch out from Angel does mean Tapu Koko is available in the back, and a big miss on the Leech Seed from the Celesteela on Angel's side.
That could be a little bit of a game changer. Now we've got that safe terrain up. We've got Misty Terrain live. So really, depending on how Wolfe has built his Arcanine, we know he's got Garchomp. We know he can swagger his Garchomp. And let me tell you, Celesteela and Arcanine do not like rock slides.
No, the big threat here, of course, is if he does switch something in next to the Tapu Fini and he does get caught with a different terrain up, of course, then he will actually confuse himself. Doesn't look like that's something we're going to be seeing this turn, though, with the switch in to the Garchomp for the Arcanine.
Arcanine going for a Will-O-Wisp onto the Celesteela. Slightly confusing since there's Misty Terrain live, but we will see Tapu Fini get off a big Moonblast, and it is a critical hit onto the Garchomp on Angel's side of the field.
Well, we see Angel bringing in that Celesteela. It can get caught by the Will-O-Wisp, of course, not affected by the terrain because it is not on the ground with the flying type. So Wolfe, knowing the kind of options there, very, very good. And now the threat of Misty Terrain gone because Angel, unfortunately losing the Garchomp on the switch into that critical hit Moonblast. He does now have control of the terrains, but Wolfe, well known for his ability to switch Pokemon around, I think it's fair to say, does bring in that Tapu Koko. The Tapu Koko that is at a much lower health, about 50%, means that Wolfe may have to switch out the Tapu Fini, and then he's going to be able to set up that Safeguard or Misty Terrain Swagger combination that he loves so much.
And that might be what Wolfe is priming to do. We see Tapu Fini get switched out for Tapu Lele as Psychic Surge activates, and the field gets weird. We also see Tapu Koko go for a Protect, so it won't be taking any damage this turn, pending a Z attack, but it doesn't. It actually protects itself from the Flamethrower from the Arcanine, as the Arcanine then gets Leech Seeded by the Celesteela.
That's really good. At least Angel finally gets something set up on his Celesteela, but I definitely think Angel is another one of those players that has been caught in a kind of Celesteela trap. I think they put a lot of time in the Celesteela, and while they're looking to get that set up, the opponent just whittles down your opponents until Celesteela cannot stand on his own to arm, feet kind of items that he carries. This Tapu Lele in the Psychic Terrain does have the potential to do preposterous amounts of damage, and that's going to be something that Angel's going to have to be very wary of, especially with this Pokemon disadvantage, and especially with that Fini Garchomp combination in the back available for Wolfe here.
As we see the timer start to tick down, players are definitely taking their time thinking about this. This is kind of a big turn. We see Tapu Koko come out in place of Arcanine. Lots of revolving Arcanines this match. Lots of Intimidates getting fired off. Not really doing a whole lot against Wolfe's Lele and Arcanine of its own. We do see a Psychic connect to the Arcanine as Arcanine reveals its item as a Citrus Berry, I believe.
It is the Citrus Berry and the Will-O-Wisp connecting using the fact, oh, there's not even Misty Terrain. It's the same kind of pink, but Celesteela now burned means it's going to be not getting as much health between turns. With 2 bouts of Leech Seed down, that's going to be really good, but we saw Tapu Lele do just so much damage to the Arcanine.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, Leech Seed is actually going to activate before any kind of residual burn damage. So the Leech Seed recovery that Celesteela got this turn doesn't really do anything but get a little bit of chip damage off onto Wolfe's Tapu Lele and Arcanine.
I think Celesteela a little bit without options here. Of course, it's set the Leech Seeds up. That's absolutely great. But I feel like Wolfe's just going to be picking off those partners. The Arcanine's something he wants to be getting rid of as soon as possible. Switching in something like a Garchomp is certainly going to help with that.
Tapu Lele going out for Arcanine, of course. And we actually see a double switch on Wolfe's side of the field. We see Arcanine getting replaced with Tapu Fini. And now we have a very familiar situation with Misty Surge setting up that Misty Terrain. Arcanine getting a Snarl off onto both the Tapu Fini and the Garchomp, lowering the special attack, of course not doing much to the Garchomp, but hindering the Tapu Fini just a little bit. And we see a heavy slam from the Celesteela connecting to the Garchomp, doing a little bit of damage. It's burned, it's not going to be super effective. And then we also have the rough skin damage as well. Tapu Fini is actually going to get a little bit of recovery from the leftovers that it has. And unfortunately, no Leech Seed recovery for Celesteela, as both of Wolfe's Pokemon were just switched out. Only burn damage for it.
Yeah, the Rough Skin, I think, doing almost as much as the Heavy Slam, actually getting the burn down on Celesteela, really putting it in its place, and it's going to have to leave the field. Wolfe making a bold double switch just to get rid of that Leech Seed, but Angel does keep that Tapu Koko safe to get rid of the Misty Terrain and prevent that swagger technique we saw from Game 1.
Garchomp actually going for an Earthquake, not caring about attacking its own partner, but it will pick up the double KO on Angel's side of the field, getting rid of Tapu Koko and Arcanine. Tapu Fini took a little bit of damage, but it was definitely worth it, as Tapu Fini once again goes for that Heal Pulse and restores Garchomp to its perfect glory.
No, I think very smart play there by Wolfe. Obviously, the terrain was something that Angel needed to change, and knowing it's Tapu Koko that's going to have to come in, he knows that it's either going to be coming in on the Arcanine slot. He's not worried at all about the Celesteela. So Celesteela can be left. The Arcanine slot is either going to be replaced with Tapu Koko, and he gets a knockout on that switch, or he's going to bring it in the Celesteela slot, and he gets a double knockout on that switch. So very smart play. Switching in to get rid of the Leech Seeds was a good start, but then he sets himself up to pretty much carry on and win the game. Not being scared of that Celesteela is something that really helped, and I think that shows a little bit as to why Celesteelas are not picking up so much. So very smart play from Wolfe, bringing a brand new Tapu Fini to the regionals party this time around.